Hi everybody, this is Alexandra Lantz and this is module 6, the accessibility evaluation. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you right away the first resource that I use that I decided to evaluate, and it is this place value practice worksheet. So just to show you what it is, this is something that we do in first grade just to introduce the tens place, the ones place, the hundreds place, and they would follow the directions. So they would say color the tens place red, and they'd color it red. Color the ones place green, they'd color it green. There's a couple problems. It's all the same. It looks just like this. So using the online accessibility handbook, I did find some limitations. Right away, the first thing that totally caught my eye was the coloring. If somebody is vision impaired or colorblind, this may be difficult for them. They may need something different, like circle the tens place, or shade over the ones place. Or if they were vision impaired, they might need to verbally say, what is the tens place in the number 234? It would be the 3. Another thing I found was the reading order of forms. If you were using assistive technology, I think this part would be okay. It would go in order. It was hard to tell because it's a PDF, so you can't really click and do the whole tab thing and edit it. But I think these boxes here would get a little wonky. I don't know if it could read it correctly. The number 234, color the tens place red. I don't really know if it would read in these directions. I think this part would be fine, but nothing else. Another thing was there was no alt text, no alternative text for this image here. The image isn't very important, so I don't think it's a big deal, but it wasn't there. Let me go back to my PowerPoint. So this just sums up everything I said just now about the online accessibility handbook. And then talking about the same resource, the place value worksheet, using the UDL guidelines, I thought in means of engagement, there wasn't really any choice, no opportunity for self-assessment and reflection, but the distractions were minimized. There wasn't really a whole lot going on. For means of representation, there was no multiple media, no other visual or auditory alternatives, no decoding of text or symbols, but this is just one worksheet. This wouldn't be the whole lesson, so this might be just the summary or something like that. So there really wasn't any use for multiple media, but it could have had some visual or auditory alternatives. For means of action and expression, there was really only one way to say your answer. And then once again, there was no multiple media. And then going into Chapter 8, supporting learners with special needs, I think by using Rice's suggestions, you could easily differentiate this instruction, just as you would in a face-to-face classroom. If a student was completing this online, you could still allow additional time per student, verbally explain the assignment if the directions couldn't be read, group students together, or provide feedback throughout. So moving on to my second resource, it's a punctuation digital center. So I'm just going to show you that now. So it's a PowerPoint, and a lot of times with these, I'll have students do it on their Chromebooks, or I'll pull it up on my smartboard and they'll just respond with whiteboards. I think if you were doing this online, students could do it individually, or the teacher could just read it and then students could volunteer their answer, maybe answering the punctuation in a chat box or something, or verbally saying it. So once again, there was no alt text for the images. But what's confusing is these images here really have nothing to do with what's going on or what the question is asking. Now this one does. So here's the school, but this girl here really has nothing to do with what the question is asking. Same with this one. The question's not asking about watermelon. It's asking about gum. So that might be confusing. There is a lot going on. It's not very simple. I think the color contrast is okay, but I mean, we have a background, we have stuff in here, we have the ants holding the signs instead of just signs. There's a watermelon. Here's a number that's kind of randomly just thrown into the middle. I think it's not a problem. When I read this to my students out loud and we do it together, it doesn't seem to be a big deal. But when I give them something like this independently, they are confused where to look, but where are the answers? It's kind of even hard to tell, like, these are your choices right here. So it is just kind of a confusing layout altogether. Cute activity, but a little confusing. So going back to this PowerPoint, based off of the UDL guidelines, there is a part for self-assessment at the very end if you just wanted to check your answers. But there was a lot of distraction and not a whole lot of choice in this particular activity. For means of representation, there was use of images for the words that they were using, but there really was no other visual or auditory alternatives, no decoding of texts or symbols. I mean, students might need help of what's the period, the question mark, the exclamation mark. For means of action and expression, I thought there could be varying methods for response if students were verbally going to say it or do it on a smartboard, do it on their individual digitally. I thought there could be different ways, even if students were just going to be on a webcam and kind of write the answer down on their own whiteboard and show the teacher. And then lastly, going off of Chapter 8, some ways that you could differentiate this lesson would be to reduce the length of the assignment. Maybe you just do 1 or 2 problems. Team up students to complete the peer presentations. You could provide multiple means of representation and use auditory. The visual is there. Or verbally explain the directions so that students know exactly what they're supposed to do.